Live and direct. It's Sway in the morning.
Right here on Shade 45.
I've been following her works for years.
Yes.
I've been following her journey for years. I've been extremely engaged and interested in her family's legacy since I was a child. Her father's teachings resonated deeply in the roots of my household growing up in East Oakland. And it's an honor to have her here. She has a new book called Malcolm Little, The Boy Who Grew Up to Become Malcolm X. This is the daughter of Malcolm X. Ilyasah Shabazz is here.
Nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Good. It's such a pleasure to be here this morning.
Wow, you are beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Do you get that a lot?
You're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. All right. I get that a lot too.
I'm Sway.
I was, I'm a father, and I was curious about this book because often when we hear about people who have impacted our lives in the way that your father did, you don't often hear about the beginnings, or at least an accurate account of the beginnings. What were the components that made this person become the person that they were? And so it was intriguing to me to read the story of how your father grew up. What made you decide to write this book?
Well, in spite the fact that I always, everyone brings their children to my house. And so I had a bunch of girls, and we went to the mall. And I asked them what they wanted to do. They wanted to go to Barnes & Noble. So I'm like, really?
Wow.
They didn't want to go shopping. They wanted to go to Barnes & Noble. So we went there, and we went to the children's book section, and I told everyone to pick out a book. And they were bringing me books, and I just didn't have it in me to get the particular books for them. I wanted them to have a book that they could look at, that they could learn something, that they could identify with some of the characters in a very positive, enlightening way. And then also the portrayal of my father is so inaccurate.
Yeah.
The importance of the family, the foundation, and the values instilled is what went into the book. And there were so many reasons. And finally the book is out.
The book is out. And it's interesting because you speak a lot about your grandparents, Earl Little,
and
yes. Louise Little, right?
Yes.
And Earl being from Nebraska, is it? Or
my father was born in Nebraska.
Your father was born in Nebraska.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and his and my grandparents, his parents, met in Canada, which was where in the early 1900s, a lot of African Americans, actually a lot of people of the diaspora from the West Indies and so forth, went to Canada because there was freedom, and they had the Garvey movement and so forth, and so that's where my grandparents met. So two conscious activists, very insightful, worldly, in touch with all of the things that were necessary, in the 1920s for a person of the diaspora. And I often say that when you have two conscious parents, you do everything that it takes to make sure that your children are also equipped with the same things that they were.
Equipped. I like that word because when you read the book, one of the things you pointed out was, and a lot of these stories that you heard were from your uncles and different family members and people who grew up with your father, but you talked about how your grandmother, even while multitasking, would give and read lessons to the children,
right?
And that she spoke 5 different languages.
5 different languages,
and then she would teach Malcolm along with his siblings different languages at the same time, right?
Yes, she did. She found it important for her children to understand that there was a world outside of wherever they were, and not only that there was a world outside of where they were, but that the value for life, the importance of learning, the importance of compassion, all of those things, the importance of an identity, self-love. And that's, primarily what this book is all about. It's saying that every child is lovable, that every child deserves to feel lovable, because a lot of our children, in spite of the ethnic background, the socioeconomic status, their religion, they don't always feel that they are lovable. And so it's so important that, that we understand that as the adults, that we have to make sure our children, not only African American or children of the African diaspora, but every child feels that they are lovable and capable of doing great things.
We were just talking about this. You write about how your father used to spend a lot of time in the garden, and the garden became somewhat of a school, right? A school ground for him. Tell us that story.
I think it's just a place where you can spend intimate time with whomever, and in this case it was Malcolm and his mother and his siblings, and she seemed to choose being out in the garden to teach him about life, about the importance of caring and nurturing, whether it's vegetables, insects, they had chickens and, so many things. They had like a farm, and she thought it was an important place, to become compassionate, to teach those kinds of, or hone in on those kinds of feelings.
You and your father have a lot of parallels in the sense that you both lost your fathers at a young age. Hearing these stories from your family members and friends of his over the years, did that help you cope with not having him in your life at all?
Well, my mother was just absolutely remarkable, because there's this phenomena, of single parent children and single parent households. And my mother, she had our father, she kept him alive in our home. She kept his presence very much there. She talked about him all the time, about her husband or about daddy. And, we had his books and clothes and his briefcase and books and all kinds of things in the home. So, I didn't really feel the absence until I went off to college. And I write about that in my other book, Growing Up X.
Okay. All right. Okay. Go ahead, Tracy.
Obviously, since you are daughter of such an astounding and influential man, thinking back at your childhood and even to this day, are people intimidated, like men that come into your life or even women that you befriend just simply because you're the daughter of Malcolm X?
Well, I think that might be why I'm very much approachable. And I probably started doing that at a young age. And I have a very serious looking face, so I have to make sure that I don't, that I'm not looking like I'm mad, but, looking like, you could come and talk to me, and most people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny about that, Ilyasah, because before you walked in, I was like, okay, Ilyasah Shabazz, let me get my SAT words together and my vocabulary. Let me get on that level. Hi, Ilyasah. My name is Heather Gardner. Nice to meet you.
Did you just say that?
Yeah, well, I had to come present that. Sorry. And then Sway says, hi, this is Heather B. You was like, what? Charles Dixon,
Right.
Are you into hip hop? How do you know Charles Dixon, by the way, Sway? He's the person.
I know Charles Dixon.
Well, I'm just for the citizens as well. Okay. He was very instrumental in my music career. All Glocks Down, my single, was a record I did at home independently, mailed it out to a bunch of DJs back then. He found it and he signed me to my first, major deal. So when you mentioned his name, I was like, what's your association with hip hop and Charles Dixon? Do you listen to it? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, regular girl. Let's see, I worked in the music industry. And I worked with Charles at Pendulum Records. And actually, I remember when he broke Tupac, what was it? Getting Around, I Get Around.
I Get Around.
And he was like, oh, you got to check out B-Side. And B-Side was Keep Your Head Up. And so, so Charles he's just like a good brother. And I tried to get him to come with me here today.
Pendulum Records was the label that All Glocks Down was signed to with Ruben Rodriguez.
Right.
I remember the
Lords
whole
of the Underground, Diggable
Wow.
Planets. Right.
Wow, you a hip hop head. You got lyrics?
It's good to know that. You got a freestyle?
Throw on a beat, Wonder. I know she got a verse in her. We got Eric on the line from Omaha. Good morning, Erica. How you doing?
Good morning. Hi, Heather. Hi, Sway.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Shabazz.
Good morning.
I was curious. I'm here in Omaha by way of Oakland. And as you stated earlier, this is your father's birthplace. Since it was announced this week that this is basically the capital of black men being murdered by other black men in the nation, I was curious what your thoughts were on that, and as well as how you feel about how the town does not seem to recognize such an amazing person that came from here, and if you're familiar with the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation.
I am familiar with the foundation. I'm familiar with the city and the state, or the town and the state. My father was born in Omaha. However, the property that my grandfather purchased for his family was property that was designated for whites only. It was premium land, and they burned the home down to the ground. And you see that in the movie X. They burned the house down to the ground, and my grandfather and his young family moved to Lansing, Michigan. I think it's important that we understand that it is everyone's responsibility, not just my responsibility, but it's every single adult's responsibility to ensure that our children are equipped, that they understand history. If there's a place that a man came and gave his life for the benefit of all of us and didn't ask for a penny in return, I think it's important that your community gets together and takes the plot, the land, the home, whatever it is, and makes it a historic landmark for your children. I think it's so important. I'm in touch with the people who are in Michigan. I think it's in Inkster, Michigan, and they rallied. They bought the property of my father's eldest brother, and that's where my father lived. A short time from when he got out of jail until the time he went to New York. So, I am absolutely concerned. My mother said her husband loved his people and she loved her husband. I love both of my parents. I love my people, and I do the best that I can. But I don't think that it's only my responsibility. I think it's every living, breathing adult's responsibility to make sure our children have all the things that are necessary so that they feel that they are lovable and they can contribute in a meaningful, impactful way.
All right, we got Ilyasah Shabazz is with us. Chris is in Arizona. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, how you doing, Sway, Mrs. B, Mrs. X? How y'all doing?
Hey, good morning.
Mrs. X.
Well, but you know what? I like to say that it's an honor just to hear you talk. My question is where can I purchase the book at? I'd like to get it, and I'm Filipino, and I believe that just by what your dad did, speaking out for the African American, I believe that he was speaking out to all the different colored people out there as far as skins. And when I hear him talk or watching a video or listen to something on Discovery Channel about your dad, I feel like he's talking to me too, and all the other people out in the world. And it's moving. I'm speechless right now just by listening to it, and I'm excited. I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless right now just by listening to you talk, and this is an honor right here.
Wow.
Well, thank you. My father was raised understanding that there is a human family and we are all brothers and sisters under the fatherhood of God. So when he did his work, yes, he fought very hard for his people, but he also fought against injustice for every human being. And so that's, the reason that you feel that Malcolm is identifiable to you, And understand that he was only in his 20s when the world learned about Malcolm X, and he was killed when he was 39 years old, and that was a very young man. He circled the globe in the final months of his life, knowing that his life was in danger, searching for solutions to the human condition. And, how many men do you know at that age that takes that makes such a sacrifice? And so what is he making that sacrifice for and against? And also understanding the social climate that existed that contributed to creating, a Malcolm X and a Dr. King and a Gandhi and and all of these other great people who stood for justice, including Nelson Mandela.
Uh-huh.
Ilyasah, he also asked, where's your book? How could he get your book? Can you give out that information?
Yes, I have a website. It's growingupx.com, but for some reason, sometimes there's a little difficulty. So if you can spell my name, Ilyasah Shabazz, I might give you a free book. But it's ilyasahshabazz.com, and you can also go into Barnes & Noble and or any of the bookstores and get it, or go to Amazon. If you go to my website, you can. There's a link that goes straight to Amazon.
You know, you're in New York, right?
Yes.
You have to come back up here.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, and just let us ask you questions, because it's great. I wish you could read this book to me, because you got one of those soothing voices.
yeah.
Like, I could just relax and go to sleep while imagining these stories. Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. It's a great book for your kids. It's a great book for yourself. Learn about this man's childhood through the eyes and the words of his very own daughter. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Sway in the morning
on Shea 45.